Go. Okay. Now for some real Baroque.
This is a retable in the style of Churrigueresque in the Church of San Jose in Sabinas Hidalgo, Nuevo León, Mexico, where my parents, uncles, and grandparents were born and raised. This video will attempt to reflect the emotional prowess of the Baroque through the historical and spiritual exploration of how this church is connected to me and my family. Churrigueresque is a term used to denote what is considered the most ornamentally profuse era of Spanish architectural decoration that's prime relatively lasted from 1675 to 1790s. The way in which the style was executed in facades and retables can be defined by the types of articulating elements predominantly used during certain years. From the year 1700 to 1735, the Solomonic or twisted column was used. From 1735 to 1775, it is dominated by the stipite, and then the ornamental niche pilaster from 1775 to 1790. Afterwards, the classicizing column returns to popularity. This term was derived from the last name of a family of Spanish woodcarvers, artists, and architects, the Churriguera family. Churrigueresque thus meaning in the style of Churriguer. José Simón de Churriguera and his stepfather, José Rates Dalmau, a sculptor and wood carver from Barcelona, established a workshop in Madrid in 1662. They were tasked with the creation of the retable for the now demolished Hospital of Montserrat. Its grandeur and large Solomonic columns with exuberant decorative features began to define the style of the family. The style was practiced by many family members, including sons José Benito, Joaquín, and Alberto de Churriguera, grandsons Nicolas and Jerónimo Churriguera, sons of José Benito, both trained architects and woodcarvers. Some of the first works of the eldest son of José Simón, being José Benito, includes an astounding Solomonic retable for the Capilla del Sagrario in the Cathedral of Segovia, built in 1686, being his first retable. In 1692, Pedro de Matia, the king's Dominican confessor, commissioned him for the main altar in the monastery of San Esteban in Salamanca. He moved to Salamanca with his brother Alberto and Joaquin to execute the project. They executed a magnificent and powerful demand for the sense of sight, as the Solomonic columns, about half the size of the church, shined in bright gold, as the intentional placements of windows on the sides of the retable allowed for light to flood in on the grapevines that wrap around the contour of the columns. The use of natural sunlight creates a spiritual effect similar to that of Gian Lorenzo Bernini's Cathedral Petri in St. Peter's, Rome, made during 1657 through 66, or of the Transparente in Toledo Cathedral. Growing up while attending the Divine Mercy of Our Lord Church in Mesquite, Texas, where the image of the Divine Mercy of Our Lord was created in stained glass above the altar for sunlight to shine in directly into the seats of those attending Mass, the spiritual effect was so strong that one felt almost unworthy of sitting in what felt like the line of sight of God. As a child and believer, it was seemingly impossible to not attend the ceremony with 100% effort and belief in what was being taught, when you were literally in the spotlight of a source of light that came from beyond the church itself. Seeing that the projects aforementioned held similar uses of light, the same spiritual effects I felt as a child a few years ago will have been felt by kids and believers just like me more than 300 years ago in these spaces. After José Benito and his brothers created this altar, the style of the Churriguera family took root and spread throughout Castile and neighboring Spanish regions. As more projects like the Church of La Merced in Madrid, built in 1714-16, the Church of San Basilio, also in Madrid, in 1717, and the Claustro de los Estudios for the Colegio de Orden de Calatrava were completed, and those three brothers continued to experiment with Solomonic themes in the 18th century, the Churriguera family, along with other artists such as Pedro de Rivera in Madrid and Narciso Toma in Toledo, worked on adding a new decorative element, like the estipite. The estipite was a tapering pilaster, sometimes seen as an inverted obelisk like those seen in Egypt. This style aroused the interest of followers outside of the central area of Spain, like Leonardo de Figueroa and his son Ambrosio de Figueroa in Seville, Francisco Hurtado Izquierdo and his followers in Granada and Córdoba, and Domingo Antonio de Andrade and Fernando de Casas y Novoa in Galicia. One of these followers was Jerónimo de Balbas, a Spanish architect and sculptor who worked in Madrid and later Andalusia to produce the Rococo-style altar of sacristy of Seville Cathedral. One of her most defining works had begun to take place around 1718 when Balbas went to Mexico and took charge of the Retablo del Perdón in the Chapel of the Kings at the Metropolitan Cathedral. With the estipite being fundamental to the language used on the retablo, this was the first formal introduction that Mexico saw of the Churrigueresque. The style that was so popular in Spain according to many historians had finally made its way. Although the estipite in Mexico seems to have been hinted at in earlier works, such as in the port of the Jesuit College of San Ildefonso, 1712-18, and the Cathedral in Morelia by Vicente Barroso de la Escayola in 1695, it was not until the Altar of the Kings in the Metropolitan Cathedral of the Assumption of the Most Blessed Virgin Mary in Mexico City that the estipite and Churrigueresque style created what is called by Gonzalo Obregón, author of Artes in Mexico, a landmark in the entire panorama of universal art. Based from his work on the Altar del Perdón, Balbas earned the commission for the Altar of the Kings. Let's take a closer look on the altar. A recurring theme in this style is the mix of painting, architecture, and sculpture. Here we see the painting of The Adoration of the Magi by Nicolas Rodriguez Juarez, a fine artist of the day, not to be confused with that of Da Vinci's or Juan Bautista Maino's Adoration of the Magi, with an estipite column and a sculpture of a Christian king. Inspired by this work, another Spanish architect also active in Mexico, named Lorenzo Rodriguez, presented a plan for the Sagrario Chapel at the Metropolitan Cathedral in Mexico City in 1749. The south and east facades of the chapel offer stonework retables strictly bounded by buttresses on either side with a frame of red tezontle, a porous and highly oxidized volcanic rock, which dips down into the sides and defines the retable with 2 rows of estipite columns even more. Upon entering, you can see the Retablo del Perdón, which he worked on with Balbas. The estipite columns provide a base for the arc that frames sculptures inside the columns themselves and between them, while simultaneously providing a larger frame for the painting, and 2 more sculptures on the upper layer with curtains above them. At around this time, in the middle of the 1700s, the estipite and Churrigueresque style had become a national aesthetic practice in civil and religious buildings. It was in 1748 through 58 where some may claim that the first truly Churrigueresque church retable was created, and that was the retable in the Church of Santa Prisca and San Sebastián in Taxco by José Cayetano de Sigüenza y Góngora. Here we see Santa Prisca and San Sebastián themselves in formal sculpture between 2 estipite columns and sort of a niche pilaster, with 2 small angels at each of their bases in the act of holding them up. Roleos, or continuous wavy and stem-like figures, foliage, and querubines, or baby angels that hold out fruit branches that project into the space, lead up to figures of popes right below the dividing cornice, which rises to create an arc with a seashell in its center to present the figures. These popes, seashells, and querubines are a recurring theme as we see Pope San Silvestre, San Ambrosio, San Jerónimo, and San Agustin along, presented in a similar fashion in the lower half of the altar. In the showcase in the center of the altar, we can see a depiction of the Purísima o Inmaculada Concepción de María. This retable depicts many of the elements shown on the format for the retable used in the late 18th century. Going from bottom to top, we can see 2 portals between the lower parts of the pair of estipite columns present on either side, with a larger niche between these pairs that is similar in shape. 2 more locations for presentation are around the middle of the estipite, with a place for a showcase in between. This is topped off by a cornice that creates a pedestal of sorts for the figures above it and space for those below it, creating a strong division without taking away from the lower parts of the retable. The top half repeats a shape that can be described as a semicircle cut before completion attacked to erect a linear base. This shape provides a background for the 3 figures on top, with San Pedro on its central pedestal defined by a star-shaped figure and its own pair of estipite columns aligned with those below. All of this leads up to the very top where the Padre Eterno is placed to figuratively and physically look down onto all the figures and the attendees present. The last retable to be looked at is a lesser known work present in the Church of San Jose in Sabina Hidalgo, Nuevo León, Mexico. Like the retable in Santa Prisca, this has 4 estipite columns, that amongst them a portal with a sculpture of a saint above them and a showcase with another sculpture between them. The 4 columns have something presented within them: 4 figures in Santa Prisca's columns and 4 paintings in San Jose's. A cornice divides the reticle, creating 2 pediments on the sides of a larger central pediment, all with sculptures above them and 2 estipites on either side of the central sculpture. In order to convey the significance of this history in a manner that is Baroque in itself, as it attempts to elicit an emotion rather than logical understanding, and in order to highlight how somebody attending these churches might have felt around 300 years ago, I asked family members of mine who have practiced their faith in the Church of San Jose the following questions, which have been edited minimally to convey the true emotions. What was your experience like the first time you entered this church? What did this make you think? And how did this make you feel? Here are the responses.
A ver, ¿cuáles son las preguntas?
Okay.
Pregúntame, que yo no sé mucho, pero...
Pregúntame.
Sí. Pero aquí está tu abuelito, a ver qué te podemos, en qué te podemos ayudar.
Okay.
Primera experiencia, pues ahí nos casamos. Pues siempre ha sido muy bonita esa iglesia. Con ese altar que tiene.
Como católica me sentía muy emocionada y con mucha paz al estar enfrente del retablo y de Cristo, que hay paz y espiritualidad.
Cuando entras a la iglesia te impresiona el retablo bañado en oro de 23 quilates, de estilo churrigueresco, que está diseñado de una manera que entra a la luz del sol muy impresionante.
Para que se vea aún más bonito, más hermoso toda esa estructura, toda esa arquitectura que hicieron en el retablo.
¿Qué pensaba? Pues déjame pasarte a tu abuelita a ver qué pensaba ella.
Es la primera parte que somos los sabinos aquí, esa área de ahí. Está hecha que te quedas asombrado de los retablos que hay ahí. Cómo están los cuadros de los vírgenes y santos y todo, y te quedas asombrado de lo bonito que está ahí.
Como católico estaba en paz y como contratista admiraba el diseño arquitectónico. Tiene mucho diseño, sí tiene mucho que admirar ahí, estar no te causa mucha admiración estar detallando todos los detalles que tiene. Es muy impresionante.
Es muy impresionante estar enfrente porque hay una historia de todo eso, aparte que está Cristo, está Dios, entonces hay mucha paz y mucha espiritualidad, aparte la historia que hay al ver todo este retablo tan hermoso, pues se siente algo muy emocionante y pues con mucha paz. Tú desearías volver a visitar la iglesia para seguir contemplando y admirando ese retablo hermoso.
Ahí fue matrimonio nosotros. Sientes una sensación de paz, así bien tranquilo. Me das cuenta que entra en otra dimensión cuando entras allá a la iglesia. Y se siente un cambio. Cuando entras un cambio, cuando entras allá a esa parte. Uno dice que porque son lugares santos y otros pues no, será por lo antiguo. No se siente igual entrar a esa iglesia que entrar a la Guadalupe Grande que está acá para la carretera. No, es muy diferente el de todo. Esto de acá de la carretera está hecha de puro concreto, puro cemento, y eso está de puros sillares. Que había antes, no había cemento ni nada de eso, está hecho con puros sillares, pura cosa muy diferente. Very good.
Very good.
Very good.
Okay, bueno, gracias, abuelita y abuelita.
Ándale, cuando le ofrezca algo con toda confianza, yo soy un ponazo. Guarda a tu abuela.
Okay.
Bueno.
Ya me salvaron la calificación.
Está bueno. Está bueno, chico.
Okay,
Te
abuelita.
cuido mucho, mijo.
All the people who have visited any of these churches, whether it was somebody who went yesterday or went 200 years ago, have been regular people just like my grandparents, my parents, myself, and like you. This entire project was made in an attempt to emulate, in the best way possible in a more contemporary sense, the sensory impacts of works like that of Correggio, of Pietro Perugin, or of any other Baroque master, in the sense that the viewer needs to understand that they are welcomed and should imagine the overwhelming cluster of emotions created by you being in this situation.